everyone. May I have your attention, please? Welcome to the Museums of Port Isabel. My name is Everett Meza. I'm the director here, and we'd like to welcome you to Telling Our Stories. And we're going on our third year with this program. This is our part of doing our oral history programs, where we invite individuals from the area to do presentations on historical aspects of the area, the Laguna Madre. And today we're honored to have Judge Eliseo Vega, and he'll be talking about the Vega family. And I'd like, for the record, today is September 25th. It's 7:10, and we'd like to welcome Judge Vega.
Thank you. It is indeed a pleasure to be here this evening, and thank you, Ed, for the invitation. And I'm going to do my best to elaborate on the Vega family since my grandfather first got here, and on down to the present. And during the course, if there's any questions, I have some pictures here to show and demonstrate. And we're a family of service to this community. I'm going to elaborate on that as we go down through all these years. We have approximately 120 years service in the Vega family. They have been here, established here. All names, the names that we read in the Bible, and you don't mind, I'm going to sit down.
Please do so.
Reading in the Bible when names, we always refer to persons or individuals or the prophets as by first name, Isaac and Moses and Abraham, but you don't hear a last name. And so you wonder when the last names came by, and then I read later on about the last names. Early century was, John, who lived by the hill, was named John Hill. And John, who lived by the meadow, was called John Meadow. And that's supposedly how the last names started to develop. And so green and white and red and blue, and so I did a little research on the Vega. Vegas comes from a Spanish name, and translated in English, it means either plain or meadow. So it probably meant that the first Vega families in this world were either lived by the meadow or lived by the plains. So then translated into Spanish, they named the Vegas. But what I could gather, I thought about short knowledge, but I did as much research as I could through the local papers, local papers, the museum here. Rod Bates was very helpful on this, and the courthouse, and a couple other people, relatives, elderly people that shed some light on this. But going back to the beginning of this, my grandfather was named Jesus Vega. Jesus, you can say it. And he was born in San Luis Potosí, Mexico, in el barrio de San Guadalupe, in San Luis Potosí. And actually, it was a colonia. Now it's named a colonia, but it was called the barrio San Juan de Guadalupe. And there was a church there that was named by that, where supposedly he was baptized. And at a very young age, he had decided he wanted to come into the United States. But how? I don't know. And this is where it all started. One day, he decided that he was going to come over here. And decided it was to be the border here in Brazil, Matamoros. And his family did not want him to do so. His job there as a young man was tending horses, or working at a horse stable for then President Porfirio Diaz, who was president of Mexico. Actually, he was a dictator for 30 years until he went into exile into France. But he left the country long before that. My grandfather left the country before that, as a very young man. He moved, he gave the family the excuse that he was going to work for a circus, which he did, that was coming to Matamoros. And then he joined the circus. I don't know whether clown or what, because we have a clown in the family, Daniel Showa, so maybe he inherited it from him, I don't know. Anyway, he came down and once the circus was here, he crossed the border and settled in Brownsville for a while, where he met, we believe, my grandmother, because then he got married to another lady. And they bore one child with my father, Juan Vega, which I'm going to talk about later on down. I don't know exactly, don't know how long he was in Brownsville, but then he was born in in 1866 in San Luis, and he died here in Port Isabel on September the 5th, 1934. He came to Port Isabel and he worked here for an old-time family, the Solis family, which lived in La Palangana. And La Palangana, it was an area where there was a lot of Hispanic people that lived there. And we believe that some of these are the families that are buried in the cemetery behind, which is now Harris's new shell place. There's a small cemetery, some of you don't know.
Illinois Avenue.
Iowa.
Yeah. And some of these people from La Palangana, would assume, were buried there in that place. The cemetery is still there. The markers are still there. And he would tend to the Solises. They had a lot of sheep and I believe cattle, and he was working for them at that time. That's where he started his first job here in Port Isabel. And then he was also like the errand boy or the errand man, I guess, and would run into town to get their merchandise and their groceries from town for the families up there. And this is how eventually he met the champion, Mr. Champion. And the first job or business after growing up was set up a barber shop. So I guess he became a barber. And the barber shop was right here at the corner of Tarnava and Railroad, where the Cerman business is now. And then over the years, that's when the champions built the Tarpon Beach hotel on the island. And I have a picture of the hotel here, which you might like to pass around. The Tarpon Beach Hotel. And at the same time, he established his own restaurant on the island. And this restaurant on the island, which we assume is this place here, because it does have his name on there and it has a restaurant on it.
So it must be the restaurant.
And the dock.
That makes good sense, doesn't it? Oh, look at that.
And with the help of Rod Bates, we found this advertisement in what was then El Diario de la Frontera, the Daily of the Frontier, which was a newspaper published in Brownsville. And in 1913, it showed his advertisement where it says, it reads, it's in Spanish, but it reads, great hotel and restaurant, recreation restaurant and hotel in Port Isabel, or Point Isabel. And that was one he opened here in Port Isabel, which was right here at the corner of Railroad and Tarnava, which was the opposite corner from where he had the barber shop before. And then he had one on the island. And the one on the island, according to the newspaper, he sold in 1914, excuse me. And that one he sold to Jose Labios. And they were advertising in this newspaper in Brownsville. But then the newspaper also in September on March the 8th of September of 1914, it showed it had an advertisement for his restaurant. And this restaurant was in Port Isabel. This was the one here in Port Isabel. It advertised, this was just a restaurant. And it advertised seafood and all types of orders. And it was obvious that this is the place that I'm pointing out to you at Tarnava and Tarnava and Railroad, because the ad even read in front of Carlos Champion. So it was right here in front of the Champion building. Yeah,
That's true.
you couldn't get lost, but of course you get lost in those days. It was not very much.
Could be. I think Polly lives there on that corner. There's some English, I think. Alice, I recognize in Mission.
And in that same theater, I mean that same place, the restaurant, he had a dance hall and a theater, a small theater. When it was not a dance hall, I guess they were showing movies. And my aunt, who was 85 years old, sit down and said, 3 movies in English, 3 movies in Spanish, or 3 nights in English, 3 nights in Spanish. So he said he had, you know, a good business from the Hispanic and the Anglo people that would come to the movies.
And Judge, what date was that? The movies and stuff.
That was about
But the same time as the...
same time as the restaurant is advertised there, the Port Isabel restaurant.
Okay.
1914.
1914. Wow.
Were they silent then?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They'd be silent.
Played the piano.
Yeah.
And supposedly also he had a bakery in that place. So it was a restaurant and a bakery, and the back a dance hall and a theater.
He was a partying guy, wasn't he?
So that was, I guess, we could say that was the Port Isabel Community Center at the time.
Yeah, definitely.
And look at my notes here, make sure I'm following the sequence. Then came the transfer of when the land was sold, the Port Isabel Company, I believe, was bought the property around this area, and the Champions sold, the Champion did it all thing to his sons, and then they sold to this company, and in 1926, when they moved to Mexiquito, am I correct in that base? I think it was 24, 26. And when they moved to Mexiquito, then he reestablished his theater that was on Chapa and now Monroe Street. He had his house there and his theater and his dance hall. The only thing he didn't reestablish was his restaurant and bakery. The restaurant, the bakery was opened at a business by my father. Named El Golfo. Here's a picture of it. That was established in Mexiquito. This, we believe, was this business. We doesn't have a date on time, but as you can see, they had a telephone. He advertised fresh meats, groceries, bakery, and free delivery. And the bakery was in the back. You can't see it, but I got to know the bakery. It was almost falling down when I was going up, and I got to know the bakery. But it had a brick oven and iron doors where they would just slide their pans in there with the bread. And that was my father, Juan Vega.
That my Maria said that My grandfather was the only one with a telephone at that
Okay,
time.
excuse me. This is my sister, Maria. You want to say that, Maria? Give me- Maria Vega Ochoa. She's the oldest of the family of my Juan Vega and Isabel Barrientos Vega. Okay, go ahead.
She was saying that at that time, my grandfather was the only one with a telephone.
Yeah.
And it's on his truck. If you look at-
On his truck?
It says
funny.
Fall
It
68.
says fresh meat and then it says Frigidaire. I guess he had it, literally had a Frigidaire refrigerator. Wonder what the population of Port Isabel was about in this era?
306.
360? Oh, okay.
The 1920s?
Right around when the soldiers came, the Pancho Villa raid days, it was 360.
And something interesting that I'm gonna show you here is a special that was circulated. The original, I put it in the capsule at the library 25 years ago.
Oh,
And it's labeled there that I shared it there, my family shared it there. It's an advertisement that tells you the prices back there, and I'm gonna read a couple of them to you. For example, potatoes, 4 pounds for 10 cents.
Wow.
Onions, 3 cents a pound. Pan de dulce, sweet bread. You could get that for 7 pieces for 5 cents. This is a copy.
back in those days either, it all about
Copy of an
balance.
original.
That's beans. 5 pounds of beans for 23 cents.
But my father was born in Brazil,
12 cents.
in Brazil, Texas, and then he came over here with his father at a very early age. And his stepmother, moving with his stepmother and his brother by his second wife. And he was helping his dad at the hotel on the island. And also, he was a fisherman. I didn't get a copy of the picture, but my aunt has a picture where he's mending nets for the boat, because they were going to out fishing on sailboats at that time. But he joined the army in, my father was born in, let me see the exact date I have here. He was born in Brownsville. And in 18, date written down here. In June 1895, that's when he was born. And he was named Juan. And I got the name because in the old days, the Catholic people would name the child after the patron saint of that day. And he was born as Juan. So San Juan is the day, June the 18th, is the day of San Juan. That's when he was born. And so he joined the army in 1915 or 14, and he was veteran of World War I, and he was honorably discharged. And we have the frame of the discharge, the original discharge. It's a big thing that I couldn't carry over here with me, but it sits in the office of Justice Eliseo Vega Ochoa, who is my nephew, and he's also a Vega on his mother's side. Anybody ever has interest in looking at it, it's over there at Judge Ochoa's office. And it's very interesting. It's signed by then President Woodrow Wilson. It's a story that my aunt told me about him. He said that his mother, his real mother, did not want him to join the army. He said, the best thing Yes, and Sofia Rodriguez. He said, go into Matamoros and stay there till the war is over.
Oh, so you didn't have to go to service.
The father said, no. You join the war, you join the army. So he did. And I guess he was very, he came very pro, you asked him for credit because he saw the three sons of veterans of the Second World War. Also, he influenced them to serve their country. When he came back from the army, he went to work as a fisherman and worked with his father, and then he also served as a constable here in Port Isabel at one time. And he was also very politically involved. So now you know where I get it from.
Came by naturally.
And he married my mother, Isabel Barrientes, Espinosa Barrientes, and which is a very old-time family also. I think you heard about the Barrientes family from Mrs. Garza here a while back. We all the same family. Mrs. Garza's father and my grandfather were brothers, and so it was very interesting that we found, or Rod showed me a census from 1860, I believe it was, right?
It's 1850.
50?
It was 1850.
And we found some of these old family names on there. My grandmother's name was not on there, but because she wasn't born yet, but her father's name was there, which is my great-grandfather and my great-grandmother's name are on that. And that the Garriga family name was there. Bishop Garriga's parents' name was there. Bishop Garriga there at that time was, I believe, 7 or 9 years old. That's what that census shows. So it's very interesting. And then when we married my mother in February the 14th, 1922. I was lucky to get a copy of the marriage certificate, a copy of the marriage certificate that came from the courthouse. And here's something else that I wanted to share with you. In an article published by the Port Isabel Pilot, and this I obtained from the museum on December the 2nd, 1931. That was my grandfather's business in Mexiquito then, we called Mexiquito. And he said the basketball squad of the local high school is sponsoring an athletic exhibition at Vegas Hall in Mexiquito tonight. At 7:30. Admission 25 cents. The proceeds will be utilized by the boys purchasing athletic equipment for the school. So I guess he was a member of the quarterback club too. And then there was an interesting program for the evening had been prepared, and I guess for different nights. It's a two-round boxing matches, and the fight was going to be between Sam Samuelson and Albert Cantu. And as you all know, I don't know if some of you knew Albert Cantu or not, but he is very well known in the community. He served as a police officer for many years and a city commissioner here in Port Isabel. He's the father of Hector Cantu. And then it showed barrel fights. Never heard about that. They had barrel fights, and that was Walter Glass versus Jack Holcomb. And I know there was a Holcomb here was tax collector some years ago, and so I guess they must have been related. And then they had a wrestling match, which was Rosario Alvar versus Pancho Aguilar. Maybe it was Pancho Aguilar. Yeah, this came from the records of the Port Isabel Pilot. And they had a battle royal basketball squad. And then they had a 3-round boxing match, which is Lupe Vasquez versus Alejandro Garcia. He was quite interested. He was the center of attraction, I guess, at that time. And going on down, my mother. I know this couldn't the Vega family, but she was a Vega because she married my father. But my mother was a native of Port Isabel, born in January 1905. And she was her father's name was Porfirio Barrientos. Like I mentioned, he was a brother of Mrs. Garza, father, and her mother was Anita Espinosa Barrientos. And my grandmother was also born here in Port Isabel, and it's obvious because the census in 1860 or 1850 doesn't show her name on there, but it shows her parents' name, and this census was in 1850, and she was born in 1880. Yes, in 1880 she was born, so that was a few years later after that census that we saw. And then she passed away in August of 1951. And my mother passed away in 1999. She lived to be 94 years old. But she was very supportive of my father's business. And my father passed away in April of 1963. These pictures also show, obtained this from the museum, a layout, a picture taken from the museum, the lighthouse, that's facing south, which is this area that way. And it will show, it points out the different businesses and residents that were in that area. And it lists on here Jesus Vega, home, bakery, and dance hall.
They like their dance hall.
Well, it had to be the most popular.
You might pass that around.
It doesn't work.
So, but it shows other businesses there.
The word.
There it goes.
And one other interesting thing also that it's on that ad that I think passed around was my grandfather also had, and it's on that newspaper, had a ferry business to the island. And I guess he was ferrying his own passengers as well to his restaurant over there, and then his hotel, or the Tarpon Beach Hotel. And then my dad, like I say, he passed in 63. My mother took over the business, but by that time it was just a neighborhood grocery store. It was still the same building, but it was a neighborhood grocery store. There was no meat market, no bakery anymore. She only had kept selling basic groceries. You could say another Circle Drive-In. And then the store was destroyed by Hurricane Beulah in 1967, I believe. Beulah hit here, and that's when the building was torn down. And shortly after that, Urban Renewal bought all of Mexiquito out and to upgrade the area because for the longest time there was no sewer, only electricity and then water. And then the sewer came in after Hockenday was the mayor here, but for many years before that, they didn't have that. And I remember distinctly the story because I said that I was born in 1944, so I was born and raised in that story, you can say it.
Excuse me, Judge Vega, could you pause a little bit? We have to put on a new film.
Oh my goodness,
Just
that's
it's gonna take
already?
about, yeah.
Giving you a
I
hint,
can't do it with
Judge.
my phone.
No, I'm gonna have
What's the matter with that thing?
You can tell they're very professional in all this.
Yeah. What is stupid, it's the curse of the champions is what it is. It works every place else except this building.
They always have-
What? What?
This wasn't the champion.
No, he played out here.
Oh, Jim, that's funny.
He came over here.
Oh, no, he's talking about one of the ex-bank presidents.
Oh, it's cursed by.
Can't get it out?
So Judge did the